Welcome back to Dream Corner. This is Viv Oyolu. I hope you're well. If you caught the last bit of that interview, that was Ryok Edward Brown, and we're talking about her 2 social enterprises. And we sort of refer to marriage in that interview. And now I have 2 experts, and I have to say I'm pretty chuffed that both of them are here, Nicky and Sila. And welcome, Nicky, because you're the first man to be on Dream Corner.
Oh, what a privilege. Thank you, Viv.
No,
it's great to be here.
I'm so happy you're the first one to come on. So really thrilled that both of you are here. They run the marriage course and the marriage preparation course, amongst other things, at HTB. And just as a disclaimer, I go to HTB. HTB is Holy Trinity Brompton. At Brompton, of course, and it's a Church of England. It's church,
yes.
COE,
yes.
And what they do is the family and relationships department that they run there, and really all the courses, are based. I wouldn't say they're based. They're around Christianity, but it's for everyone. So you don't have to be a Christian to attend. They have a parenting course, which I have to say, I was going to talk about it today, but I wouldn't do it any justice. So I've said we'll have to set another show aside for that. So hopefully you will have some time to talk about that in the coming months. But the marriage course, which is based on the book you wrote, the marriage book. And when did you write that book?
Oh, can I just have a disclaimer too?
Yeah.
I lost my voice yesterday. And I thought I wasn't going to have any voice at all. So I sound kind of interesting. I don't always sound exactly like this. No. But I think it's going to give Nicky a really fair chance.
I got a really fighting chance today.
Because normally
so if you hear more from me, that might be unusual, but that's why.
So he's really thrilled that I'm slightly incapacitated this morning.
It's very quiet at home at the moment. So it's nice to come in here for a talk.
And talk, right?
Yes.
So I'll let Nicky answer the first question.
Okay, so when did you write the book?
We wrote the book, we published it in 2000.
2000, okay.
But it took us a little while because the book is based on these 2 courses that you've already mentioned, the marriage preparation course and the marriage course.
Yeah.
And
so it wasn't the other way around.
No, we'd been writing the courses for many years. And then people asked us if we could put it into book form. So that was how the marriage book was born.
What happened was that the first thing we did was we were asked to run marriage preparation for the people coming to our church. And that was way back in 1985.
Okay.
And so that's how we started, really. And we put together and developed the marriage preparation course. But very quickly that grew to people from, as you've just said, outside the church, people, who wouldn't call themselves churchgoers, with no faith at all, because the courses are very practical.
Yeah.
They're based on Christian principles, but actually the vast majority is just really practical relationship education and principles.
I have to say, when I was reading I speed read the book, I have to say. I did, but it was one of those books like, I'm going to have to come back to this. This is fantastic. It is really, really practical and very real. Because I know both of you, I can almost hear your voices.
Yeah.
Well, leaping out of the pages of the book.
And we wanted to make it very realistic. So this is what marriage is about, but also hopeful that people can put these principles we're talking about, practical things, into practice in their own relationships, in their own marriage, and start to see differences if they're not already doing them.
So how long have you been married then?
We've been married 35 years.
35 and a half years.
Oh, right. So when is your anniversary then?
July the 17th. Sila
Don't try and catch him out, Sila. That's not fair.
Because I couldn't, before we got married, I couldn't remember our wedding. I kept thinking it was July the 14th. I kept telling people July the 14th. They thought, that's funny. It's
we were there
the week. So it took me a little time to learn July the 17th. But I've got it now.
Yeah, well, obviously you're still together, so it wasn't an issue. 35 years. So I guess you have a lot to share with people about marriage and having a successful marriage. I think in the book, if we start with the 7 things you say are important in the book: the art of communication, building strong foundations, resolving conflict, power of forgiveness, love in action, good sex, family, and in-laws. I think the parents and in-laws, I think the parents and in-laws bits is really interesting because you don't talk about that in the marriage preparation course, and we're going to get to that later on. But
we do.
You do?
Well, because really, when the overall title, a better title, would be the impact of family, both past and present.
Yeah.
And actually, we do talk for people coming who are preparing for marriage, just to say to them, actually, you bring into your marriage the whole impact of your upbringing. And we talk about actually the need to actually recalibrate your relationship, because what you're doing when you get married, the vows, you are saying, I'm now going to put my husband or wife number one in my life. And there's a new center of gravity. And our relationship, not that it stops with our parents, but it changes.
Yeah.
And they are now no longer our center of gravity. And emotionally, it's a big change. So we do talk about it on the marriage course.
Okay.
But we talk in much greater detail. We look at in much greater detail on the marriage course.
Okay. So if we just pick on, I think communication is the one thing that is the course of, because sadly, my parents got divorced, and I did a show about divorce at the start of the year, and I realized that it had a very huge impact on my and they got divorced when I was 21. So I was already an adult, but it still had an effect on me, and even the type of marriage it was. I guess now that I'm older, I understand a lot more about what marriage is all about. So while that show it had an effect on me, because I was almost like a child again, remembering or reliving lots of things, because I had a child psychologist counselor on the show as well. But if I, at that age, can be affected by my parents' marriages, I guess there's a lot that can be put into it to make a marriage strong from the beginning, so children don't have to experience the kind of things I experienced. Yes. And from your perspective, Nicky, what would you say are some of the key things? I know you talk about that, but is communication the first thing that you would say?
I'm sure you're right. Communication is absolutely key to a marriage. And I think partially, very often what happens is we start to take each other for granted, which means we stop finding out new things about each other. And I think the great opportunity of a marriage is that we never stop learning about this person that we're married to. There's always more to discover about them.
I think when you say that, what really strikes me is that if you don't have the premise to get married on, the foundation of why you got married, then you wouldn't even think about wanting to discover new things about this person, because it's like, oh, well, I've given you a ring, but that's what you wanted, and we're going to have children, and that's our life together. So if your own understanding of what marriage means, then your own understanding of what marriage is different, then I guess you carry that right through. Would you say?
I think one of the key things, we talk about it on the course and in the book, is that the foundation of a marriage, of a strong marriage, is trust. And that is exactly what we're doing when we say those marriage vows. We are committing. That's what we're doing, committing to each other. It's what the man and the woman say to each other that they're going to, like your previous answer.
Yeah.
And the thing about when we trust someone, then we can be open. And that's where the communication comes in. We don't have things hidden. We are open because we trust that they're not going to say, oh, that's so stupid, or laugh at us, or get angry, or say, how could you think that? If we trust them that they love us and they're going to be kind and they're going to listen, then we open and we tell them where we're anxious, where we're fearful, what our dreams are, what our hopes are. And of course, that openness leads to intimacy and closeness and understanding. And it's a really, what we call a virtuous circle. If you don't have that trust, then actually what can happen is the opposite, which is a vicious circle of a downward spiral of lack of trust, lack of openness, lack of communication. And then you start to blame and accuse and feel resentful and so on and so on. And so it really is, the basis is the trust, which is the vows. So marriage is not just a bit of paper. It's actually what we say and the commitment. And then And then that is the basis for then the very practical thing of starting to be open and communicate well with one another.
Would you agree?
Oh, I would totally agree with that. I totally agree. And there are a lot of people that I think what you've pointed to through children's, when they experience their parents' marriage breakup, they start to lose confidence in marriage. And we want to help people to see it doesn't have to be like that. That actually you can put things in place where, as Sila said, you have this foundation of trust, and then on that foundation you start to build. So you talk about your feelings to each other, you listen to each other. And that's how a relationship grows and changes. I think many people today think of marriage being very static. You get married to this person, can't imagine how that could be interesting. But actually, if you see it as something that is growing and changing all the time, finding out more about each other, it becomes very exciting.
But I do think marriage is a countercultural kind of attitude. I mean, to have exactly what Nicky's talking about, what we're talking about, because basically it is all about giving, not about taking.
Yeah.
And we live in a consumerist culture, and relationships can become consumerist. So what's in it for me? Am I fulfilled through this relationship? But actually, it is altogether the other way around. It is about giving.
Yeah.
And it's the giving up of self and thinking about the other one. And that is hard. And
that's really hard.
It's really tough. And it means the other golden rule, and I can tell you we've lived this out, is you can't change. You don't go into marriage thinking about changing the other one, but you can change yourself. And just on the communication, I can honestly say I came into marriage not being a good listener. And I'm very good at talking. I love talking, but I am not good. I wasn't good at listening. And over 35 years, have had to learn a lot about listening.
And I can vouch for the fact that she's changed. She now listens to me a lot. It's great.
Oh dear. Honestly, we could talk forever, but I better get all my questions in. And you talk about love in action. And I think I read, one of the books you talk about in Gary Chapman's book. Yes, the 5 languages. I think that is the best.
It is, isn't it?
Oh, it is fantastic. Yeah. And I read that for the different versions for couples, and there's for singles as well. And I read the one for singles. And I think it's important, even as you're single, to understand what your love languages are and teach someone or tell someone what they are before you get married. But if you're already married, you can read the one for couples and understand. But let's talk about a bit more how that is really key, because you talk about these 7 things, but that is really key in understanding somebody's love for you.
Yes, and it can be. We've seen how the 5 basic ways through which we show love: through words, secondly through time, thirdly through touch, fourthly through presents or gifts, and fifthly through actions. And for each one of us, one of those 5 will be the most important, or there may be 2 that are almost equal, will be the most important for us to feel loved. And typically, we tend to show love in the way that we like to receive it. But if our partner feels loved in a different way, we can be making huge efforts to love them in the way we feel loved, but if it's not in the way they feel loved, they won't feel like there's any love in their marriage.
And so many people talk about how they feel like they're kind of missing each other. They're like 2 aeroplanes flying in the opposite direction, and they're just sort of never going to connect.
And we've seen incredible changes in relationships just through understanding what their own and their husband or wife's love language is, and then starting to show love in the way that makes the most difference to the other person. And sometimes they have to learn to do that. It can feel very unnatural. If touch is very important to your husband or wife, but it may be you grew up in a home where there was no physical affection. You have to start to practice something that feels unnatural to you. But we've seen how we can all learn. We learn to show love in ways that are important to the other. Yeah,
and if, going on from what Sila said, if marriage is about giving of yourself, then you would want to do that because you love the other person and you want that person to feel loved, because that should have been the reason why you got married. And
this is a very, very practical way to do that. So many people say, well, I want to show love, but I don't know how to. And this 5 love languages is such a really great way of practically, proactively being able to do that. But sometimes it's difficult. I mean, for me, with Nicky, his number one way of feeling my love is when I speak really kind, lovely, affirming words.
So let me give you a little example of it. If one of my hobbies is woodwork, I might like making things out of old bits of wood.
Okay.
He's really good at it.
I'm not particularly good, but anyway, Sila's practicing that love language already. But if I've made something for Sila, I like her to say something nice about it every day for at least 2 weeks. After that, she can drop it down to every other day, then gradually. But those words mean a huge, huge amount to me.
So like yesterday, I've been away for a couple of weeks, and I came back, and a table that Nicky made for our wedding anniversary about 10 years ago, the legs had broken. So it hasn't...
Shows I wasn't necessarily very good at making
It's been out of action for a while, but I love this table. And anyway, he'd mended it while I was away.
Oh.
And when I came back, and I didn't notice, which was awful. But anyway, he said to me yesterday, "You haven't said anything about the table." And I thought, oh no! Because of course to him, that really matters. So now I'm trying to say it about 3 times a day.
So I feel great now. She's making up for it.
Okay, so with these 7 foundations that you've laid out in the book and on the course, so how does the course work?
Well, the really important thing is we want it to be as near to going out on a date for a couple as possible.
Okay.
So it's not marriage counselling, it's not group therapy. It is absolutely private between the couple, but it's a really lovely experience. So when they walk in, it's the nearest thing to a restaurant. So there's tables for 2, candles, flowers, background music, low lighting. It's just like a really lovely restaurant. And the couples can have dinner together. So we serve them dinner when they first arrive. They just sit at their table. They're just enjoying being together. And then the rest of the evening, we do a bit of Nicky and I inputting about communication or whatever it is. And then during the evening, we break and give the couple time to discuss about that issue. And they have a manual, each of them. And we give them different exercises. Sometimes they write things down and then they swap and look at each other's manual, which is really fun. Or other times they talk. But what's great is that it's not like you just have to talk about anything. We give them very specific things to talk about, which makes it much easier. And so the big benefit is what the couple are actually discovering about
And
each
that
other.
privacy is a terribly important aspect of the course, because it means that any couple can come, and they don't need to tell anybody anything else about their relationship, but they are just talking together. Now, certainly some couples who come have some hard things to talk about.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Forgiveness. There may be things that have happened in the past they need to talk about and find out why it hurt the other one so much, apologize and forgive. So there are hard things they may talk about, and sometimes there are tears, but equally, a lot of so often couples just say they love this time where they're talking together, discovering things about each other, investing in their relationship. And it is, just as Sila said, it's like going out on 7 dates together.
And the course is for any couple. So we want absolutely any couple to come. First and foremost, we want couples who've got good marriages to see this as a way of investing in the relationship. You know, we can so easily take our marriage for granted rather than investing in it. 7 evenings out, just the time. And some people say, yeah, they have a great marriage, but actually just the time to focus on them was really, really valuable. But we also have people who are really struggling and really know they need some help. And we also have people who actually are separated and they've decided to do the course and see if they can work out getting back together. And
Really?
Oh, yeah. And we know of really now a lot of couples for whom that's been their experience and they have got back together.
Wow.
And one of the interesting, I'm just thinking of one couple where that was the case, and one of the most interesting phrases the husband used was that they were separated for 9 months, I think.
Oh.
But anyway, they got back together, they're back together again now, and they've got a little child. And he said the whole thing was so unnecessary. And, you know, there are thousands of couples out there where it is so unnecessary for them to be
Apart.
struggling
Apart,
or
yeah.
apart or just all of those things. And actually that's what makes us so excited that we can go on, this course running and lots of other courses running, not just us, but loads of other people are running it around the country and around the world.
But based on how you set it up.
Totally,
Okay.
because it's all, the course is available on DVD and with very simple kind of, instructions for people who want to facilitate it. So there are over
1,000 courses running around the UK.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's
some
fantastic.
of them will be people running it in their homes. They might run it for 3 or 4 other couples. Some will run it for lots of couples, as we do.
Wow. So I guess one thing that would be sticky for a couple who's going through a rough time would be complete honesty. Because you wouldn't want to hurt the other person's feelings.
Well, this is why the marriage course is a kind of safe framework for couples. And that's what we've heard again and again from people in that situation. Because they're not just there on their own at home, where if they started to talk about these things, the whole thing can escalate and get out of control.
Because their conversations are private as long as they're talking. If they started shouting, then they wouldn't be private.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So that can be a very helpful restraint
Okay.
for them. They know that they can dare to address this topic, but on the confidence that this time they're going to have a conversation about it, not a shouting match about it.
And the other thing is what I said before, that we give them very specific things to talk about, but often the opening up of the subject will be by writing some stuff in a manual. And we've realised that many people are able to say, about they've been hurt by their partner, and they can actually write down some of those things, whether it was hurt by their actions or hurt by their words or hurt by a circumstance or whatever. And they can write that down. And then there's a very kind of, we give them the opportunity to then show that to their partner, and then the other one's doing the same. And then we give them clear instructions. Now take one of those and just start to talk from the I perspective, using I statements, not accusing the other, but saying, I felt really rejected when you just never gave me a hug. When you come in from work, you never hug me, you never kiss me, you never do anything like that. And I feel that makes me feel really rejected. It's those kinds of things that it's a sort of forum that's safe to do that.
Wow. Okay. So if we just dip into the marriage preparation course a bit. And I know some people who got married 3 weeks ago, and they came on the course, the last one that just finished. And the guy wrote on Facebook, who said marriage is dead, HTB's packed out. So there were lots of people.
We had over 100 couples. We always get about 100 couples. In fact, for the last, we run the course 3 times a year, and we get over 100 couples each time we run it.
Wow.
Engaged couples. It's a great atmosphere. If you ever want to come in, you can you imagine 100 couples, all of whom are in love with each other, about to get married. It's the most hopeful atmosphere you can ever come into.
I should come in there and breathe
Exactly.
in all the fumes of love.
You can get high.
Yeah. So when you started, because you said you were doing the married prep first. What was your thought process when you started creating
Well,
that?
I mean, we literally started with 3 couples in our sitting room.
Oh, really?
Because that was the 3 couples that were getting married at HTB, then. And we were asked by the vicar at the time to take on the responsibility of preparing these couples for marriage. So we had a particular, I guess, passion about relationships, because we met when we were teenagers, fell in love, and then got married when I was just 21 and Nicky was 22. So relationships were kind of, because that was quite unusual, and because, anyway.
And a lot of people had sort of sought our advice, both single people, couples. And so we were learning all the time, both from our own experience, but also from what we read, what we heard. We were picking up things all the time and passing these things on to others.
And very practical things. So that was really how the course developed. I think we started with sort of just 3 evenings, but it's developed into 5 sessions because we realised, out of our own experience, there were very particular things that we had learned from others and put in place in our marriage, which we wanted to pass on. And that really is effectively how the topics came to be. I mean, it's not rocket science, and because relationships are relationships the world over, but it's putting it in a way that's very practical, and we gave lots of examples from our own marriage. And I think that's what people say to us again and again. It's so great to hear that you don't have this sort of somehow magical squeaky clean relationship that just works, because we talk all the time about how we've had to really learn a lot, and it's a journey, and we get it wrong, and we have to learn and know the tools to make it right, and to keep investing when you just don't feel like it, and all of that stuff. So I guess it's been real, but it's also giving couples very particular tools, practical tools to actually put into practice in their relationship.
And every time we did a course, we would ask them for feedback. What was helpful? What else would you like us to talk about? And that's how the course is developed over the, doing it 3 times a year meant we've talked to thousands and thousands of couples now, and all the time learning from them. What's helpful? How can where do we need to do more? What other topics do we need to address, and so on, until we got to the point of, a couple said, yeah, this is really helpful. This is the right length. And that was the point at which we wrote the book, the marriage book, and then put the courses on DVD for other people to be able to run as well.
And I think going back to your point about your own experience of marriage through your parents and then them divorcing, so much of what we know and learn about how to make a relationship work is modelled by what our experience is.
Very true, yes.
Relationship, the adult relationship we see, whether it's marriage or not or whatever, as we grow up. And so many of us don't have a model of, for example, I'm talking about my own experience, how to resolve conflict well. I mean, my parents were together for 52 years until my dad died. And they had, I would say a great marriage, but my goodness, there was plenty wrong with it too. And one of the things was they absolutely did not know how to resolve conflict. There was a lot of slamming doors and storming out and shouting and moods and that kind of thing. So when I came into marriage, I thought that's how you dealt with conflict. So I was very moody, a lot of slamming of doors and shouting and things like that.
And I certainly wasn't used to that. My background was very different. So I thought, oh my goodness, this is disastrous. Things are going downhill rapidly. For Sila, it was just normal. So we had to talk about that stuff and work out a different way.
And actually, yeah.
So what's the best way of resolving conflict then?
Okay. Six steps. Or
shouldn't I ask?
Let me give you one.
Okay, give us one.
One is to find the best time. We'd been married a year, and we were talking to some friends who'd been married just a tiny bit longer than us. And they told us about a rule in their marriage, and it was called the 10 o'clock rule. And the 10 o'clock rule is that if you're having arguments late at night, and that was the time when we had all of our most futile arguments. It was always late at night. Things get out of perspective. But they said this 10 o'clock rule means that either one of you, if it's late at night, you can call into play the 10 o'clock rule, and that means that this discussion has to be postponed till a better time, earlier the next evening or the weekend. And that 10 o'clock rule was so helpful to us.
It was really, really helpful for Nicky, let's say.
Yes,
because he was the one who had to do it. Because I like to have things out there. I like, to get things sorted right away, and I'm very passionate about my feelings. So I would say, no, we've got to go on. And he would say, no, we're just going to stop this right now and we'll do it tomorrow, which I found difficult.
But we agreed to this 10 o'clock rule in our marriage.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's been a great help. So no late night arguments.
I guess, because they always say it's bad to go to bed on a bad temper. So I guess that...
Yeah, and you can have a really vehement disagreement about something, and you may still need to make up, you may need to apologize, even while that thing remains unresolved. So you agree that we will leave this unresolved issue for the moment, because we're not going to resolve it tonight. The longer it goes on, the worse it's going to get. We're going to leave that. We're going to park that to one side, come back to it another time. And actually knowing you will come back to it is important. But we're going to make up as much as we possibly can. That might mean saying sorry.
Like me saying, I'm really sorry, I just shouted at you and said some not very nice things to you. Because that's what can come out when, that would be the way it would be.
Hmm.
So it's saying, I'm sorry, and then you go to bed so that your relationship is right, but the issue is not resolved, but you're going to do it later at a better time.
I think that's the difference, and I never looked at it that way, because you're saying the relationship can always be intact, even if there are unresolved issues.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I never looked at it that way. That's interesting.
Another point in our kind of 6 steps to resolving conflict is discuss the issue rather than attacking each other. And it's separating the issue from the relationship. And actually, what we talk about is like you're sitting on a 3-seater sofa, and rather than the issue in one sort of husband one end, wife the other, with this massive issue in the middle, so you can't hear each other, see each other, whatever. Actually, you take the issue from between you, you put it out in front, and then you together move together on the sofa, and then together you are looking at this issue and saying, how are we as a couple going to sort this and find a solution to this issue that we don't agree about, but it's out there, we've got to come up with a solution. So you're working together rather than against each other, rather than attacking each other.
Wow. That is very, very useful. And I'm not married yet.
Yeah.
No, and a lot of people on the course have said that simple sort of analogy, putting the issue, taking it from between you, putting it out in front of you, moving together, that has helped them start to talk about differences, disagreements in a constructive way.
Yeah. And it helps with communication as well.
Sure.
It does, because it means you have to, if you're going to address this issue, it does mean you've got to take it in turns to talk, got to listen to each other, and then sometimes just brainstorm solutions. You might come up with 6 different solutions for this issue, and you say, right, well, let's try number 2. We'll try number 2 for a week, for a month, see how it goes. If it doesn't work, then we'll come back and we'll try a different solution until it stops being an issue.
So, for example, one of the biggest issues for us in the early years of our marriage was money, because we're very different in our way of handling money, and it meant a lot of conflict. And basically, it was my issue being very hopeless with money. And anyway, eventually, the solution that we came up with, because we realised we had to address it, was that I had never learned how to budget. My family, that was another thing they never taught me how to do. And so Nicky showed me how to budget. And, that made a massive, massive difference. I mean, it didn't sort everything overnight, but just a practical solution of learning how to budget. And then I have to manage my money on a weekly basis so that I know what I've got, et cetera, et cetera. And those kind of things that we just talked about it. Whereas before, I just buried my head in the sand. I said, I don't want to talk about money. I hate it, all that stuff. And it's a very different thing when you can bring it out, put the issue there, come up with some solutions.
Yeah. I think just listening to you and, well, better not air my dirty linen on the radio. But I think it's really interesting that going through those little things like that, you have to be committed to the relationship. You have to be committed even before you get married.
Yes.
Let alone when you get married. You have to be committed to the fact that you're going to be honest and open. And I think I said this before. Honesty, trust, not believe that this person is not going to belittle you because your idea of certain things is not the right way, or it's a different way from how you see things. And that comes across very clearly. And you have to work at it. People think that marriage just sort of, boom, you get married and everything is all rosy, but forgetting that you're 2 individuals coming from different circumstances.
Yes. And looking at those differences. Well, on the marriage preparation course, we get them to talk about things like to talk about their family backgrounds, talk about what they expect in terms of the roles that each of them will do. Are they going to share the cleaning in the house? How are they who's going to organise if they have a car? What happens to that? Who's going to organise holidays? How's that going to happen? And it's only when they start to think about, sometimes, let's say the husband says, well, it was always my mother who organised our holidays. And his fiancée says, it was always my father who organised the holidays. You come into marriage with a sort of mismatch. You can both be expecting the other one to do it because that's the way that your parents sorted it out. You need to have a conversation and decide, how are we going to do it? You may do it completely different to your parents. But we come in with many assumptions from our background that we need to, if you talk them through, then you work out this is our way of doing it. And a lot of couples on the marriage preparation course, they love it because they're discovering new things about each other. They're thinking about and talking about issues they never thought about talking about before.
Wow.
And it's really interesting. I mean, in the last 10 years of doing marriage preparation, we've seen many, many, many more cross-cultural marriages. Because, we live in a global village and everybody's coming from all over the world. London's an absolute meeting point. Many, many people are marrying someone from another country. And I think that just exacerbates those differences. So, we would want to flag that up, that you really need to think about and learn about and be open to each other's cultures and different family backgrounds, different traditions, etc., etc. But I mean, that's true whether you're coming from the same culture and country, but it's doubly true if you come from different cultures.
Wow.
Lots to think about.
Yeah, a lot to think about for me. I was going to ask you a question now that has just flown from my head.
You were talking before about the trust being at the basis and the commitment being at the basis of our relationship.
I know now. I remember my question. Have people decided that the marriage wasn't going to work, or before when they're doing the marriage prep course? Oh,
they have. And I don't know what percentage it is. We don't know exactly.
No, not percentage, but it must be
probably, out of 100 couples, there may be 5 who decide not to get married. And actually, while it can be sad for them, maybe sad for their families, actually, that's a good thing. Because we'd much rather they thought about it then rather than once they did get married. And they realised they might have very different expectations about marriage, very different understanding of marriage. And it's good to bring these things out in the open so that they have their eyes open.
Interesting.
But you're quite right to ask the question.
Yeah, because I would imagine if you're coming from different, even if you have the same background, that really doesn't have anything to do with it. But if you discover that the person has different values from you, because even if you have the same background, doesn't necessarily mean you have the same values. No. So you're coming with the same values. So if you discover that the person has different values, that could be a showstopper.
Yeah,
it can be. It can be because our core beliefs and values affect how we are going to, they affect how we are going to use our time, how we're going to use our money. They'll have a practical outworking in our marriage. And we can be very different personalities. Sila and I are very different in terms of how we communicate, how we express emotion, all these things. But we have similar values, similar core beliefs and values, so that
those things are running through,
yes,
right through everything else that's going on. Yeah. They have a different jigsaw, but that runs through every piece of it.
In relationship jargon, it's what's called a bonder. So there are things that actually will bond a relationship, and there are other things that are kind of more likely to take you apart. And a shared sort of belief system and value system is a bonder. Brings you together.
Behind this fantastic book, I have to say, I got to the apex one and ready for marriage, and I thought, I better read this myself since I'm not there yet. And the first test you put there is, do I want to share the rest of my life with this person? It may seem like a silly question, but that's actually a very serious question. And if we're talking about different change in society and the way people see things, where, well, I may not be with this person forever. Nothing lasts forever. People have that sort of idea. But if they seriously ask themselves this question, do I want to share the rest of my life with this person? That might really get them to sit down and think about it consciously, not subconsciously. Because if you're dating someone and you're in love with that person, you say, yeah, we're going to be together. But when you sit down in the quiet of your mind and really consider, do I really want to share the rest of my life with that person?
I think, that is so critical. And as I said before, we live in a society that is very much an individualistic society, in the sense that, let me define what I mean by that, that people are encouraged to really go for what they feel passionately about, which is great, absolutely great. I mean, there's huge opportunity today that we haven't had in the past, which is brilliant. But it also means that we think life is totally and only about me fulfilling what I believe is the kind of goal and the aim and the purpose of my life. Now, what you've just said about that first test, am I prepared to share the rest of my life with this person? That is counter to that individualistic approach. So it goes back to what I said before about the giving. Marriage is about giving. So, an example of something that comes up often, people talk about money, and they find, in your marriage vows, you say, all that I have, I give to you. Now,
all that I have, I share with you.
All that I have, I share with you, sorry. And that's great in theory, but lots of people say, but actually when it comes to the practice of everything that I have, all my money, it may not be lots, but all the money and what I do with it, I have to share now. And that it's not my money and your money in marriage, it's our money. We share it. And that's the meaning of share. And that's just one thing. And actually it means saying no to actually being my life fully. We're always taking into account the other person. So it is actually giving up those I and saying it's we now. Now, that doesn't mean to say you lose your
Yes, I think that's, we have to, stress that.
Actually, marriage is about completely the opposite. Marriage is about actually bringing out the full potential of each of the partners, which is what I don't think people understand either. But it requires us to think about the other and to kind of encourage them to be.
And the really exciting thing is when a couple catches a vision that together we can do more, we can achieve more, we can be more than we are just as two separate individuals. And that through our relationship, through this sharing, actually causes both of us to grow. And of course that is at the heart of a Christian understanding of life, that it is as we give that we receive. As we give, we grow. And we grow in loving, we grow in learning to love. So we don't want to make it sound depressing. We want to ask people honest questions.
No,
we actually want to give them exciting.
It's brilliant because if I think of any past relationships, obviously I haven't married any of them. I would think about just if I ask this question against that person, I'd like, definitely not. Yeah. Oh no. And the one that really I think is very important and just as important is when you say, does my love give energy or strength or does it drain on me? And that's when you have your own interest. So if the person is trying to suck you away from something you like to do just because they want you to be together.
And is this other person encouraging you? Are they cheering you on? Are they with you and for you? Or are they just wanting to take for their own needs? And I think you're right. I think that is a very important distinction, and helping people to focus on that question helps them to see whether their relationship has the potential to give life and energy and excitement for the future.
Yeah, and just going on from what you said previously about if two of you can do more together, and if one person is going to drain what you're capable of doing, then it's kind of counterintuitive.
Yes.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll just go through another one. Now that I have you here, okay. Do I respect this person? This seems like people think, well, if I love them, then I respect them, but it's kind of different, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I think it goes back to the values, and I mean, for example. One of the things I loved when I met Nicky was that, I mean, I know we were only teenagers, but I loved the way he related with his family and with other family, and particularly with children. So I loved the way he was just so great with kids, but he also was really kind of great with his parents as well. And that's what I thought, whoa, I like him, because he's kind and he's fun to be around, but he's also really, like treats his mom nicely. And I think looking to see characteristics like that, or whether it's that they are generous, or whether they are honest, or it's looking for those characteristics that you believe are really important, that you think. And one of the biggest ones is, would I want this person to be the mother or father of our children? Because will they be the example to them that I would want them to be? So that's a kind of a great plumb line, a kind of benchmark way of thinking about, do I respect them?
Yeah, I'll give a personal example. There was a guy I was dating. We're just starting to get to know each other, and I really liked him. He really liked me, and it was very obvious to all the friends, our mutual friends. And we were having a conversation amongst all of us, and he said something. I can't remember what we were talking about, but it was an issue with integrity, and that was like a red flag. I was just like, and I kept on asking, so you mean you wouldn't? He said, yeah, I wouldn't have any qualms with doing that. I was like, really? Are you sure? Just because I liked him, I didn't want to think that somebody I liked, had those values. Yeah. And it turned out that was who he was, and that was a taster to, the kind of values that he had on certain things, which were, of course, against my own values. And needless to say, the relationship went.
And sometimes when we fall in love with somebody, the infatuation can mask those other things. So you're quite right. We need to ask those questions and to discover those things about respect.
Yeah. And actually, that's one of the other questions, is, has the relationship weathered enough time and seasons of life to be able to really see the real person? And as Nicky said, being in love, in inverted commas, infatuation masks that. We have these rose-tinted spectacles on. And that's why, we would say, time is important, that a very quick getting together and then marrying.
How long would you say is too quick or too short?
We know couples who've met, got together, got married really quite quickly over a matter of months, and they have a great marriage. I think it's true to say, it is true to say we know others who've done the same thing, and actually they haven't spent enough time getting to know each other. So generally, as a rule of thumb, we say a year.
Okay.
It's not years and years, because some people just put it off endlessly, and that, I think they're missing out when they put it off endlessly. But generally, a year, of course, you've seen people through all the different seasons. You've seen them in the summer and the winter. You've probably seen them with their family, with their friends, and as well as having time on your own. So you've seen them in a variety of situations.
And it gives time to see them when things are going well, but also maybe when things are not going so well, maybe when they're unwell, or, kind of different circumstances, job going better, maybe no job, maybe, whatever. And how they respond and react in those kind of situations.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Okay, we'll just do one last one. Sorry, I have to really. And I think this one is the real test one. This one where it says, "Do I accept this person as they are now?"
I thought you were going to pick that one.
Yeah. Because I know that is such a sticky point with, he does this, and I'm like, well, he was doing that before, wasn't he? And you accepted him. And because if my friend tells me that, I'm always on the guy's side. I'm like, but you kind of knew that before, and people don't like me when I do that.
And the dangerous thing, I think, or the unhelpful thing, is when people think once we get married, then he or she will change. It's sort of marrying a person on the installment plan, which is no good. As you say, it's seeing the person for who they are and saying, if they didn't change at all, I am going to accept them with all their warts and all their flaws.
A good question to ask is, are there some things that annoy me about this person? And just be very realistic. And I bet there are. Most people, there's something that annoys you. And you just have to say to yourself, okay, if that never changes, am I up for that?
Yeah. I had a lady, she's a dating stroke relationship coach. She's coming on next week, I think. And I had her on before, but she was so good and we didn't have enough time to talk. I was like, okay, you're going to have to come back. But one of the great things she talked about was if you have, people always say you have a list of what you want in a
sort of tick list.
a tick list. She said, well, instead of doing a list of what you want, why don't you do three things? A list of what you want, what you can tolerate, and what you can't tolerate. So if somebody comes along and you know this is a deal breaker, then kind of like this person. So the integrity, if integrity is really a strong point for you, then if you know that this is what you can't tolerate, then you wouldn't even start a relationship with that person.
Very helpful.
Yeah, and I'd never heard that before. And she was the first person who pointed. I'm like, yeah, that's true.
Whereas if it's sort of whether or not they've got brown hair, or indeed whether they've got any hair at all, and I speak very personally here, that may be something that you might change your mind on.
Yeah, exactly.
Nicky started with a whole afro head of hair.
Oh, and there you.
It's not a lot left for those who are just listening.
But you see, that doesn't matter because it was on the I can tolerate list.
Right.
Well, I can't tell you. Thank you. When is the next marriage course coming up?
We start in May.
Okay.
May the 21st, I think it is.
Okay.
And the best way is to on the website relationshipcentral.org.
Yeah.
All the different courses around London are on there.
Oh, great!
And our own course at HTB starts on. Oh, I'll have to turn it on again. I think it's Monday.
I think yes, it's the start of
May the 21st.
Is it that late? I thought it was early on in May.
But
if you go to relationshipcentral.org, people
all the courses are on there.
All the courses are on there. And sadly, we can't talk about the parenting course because you've written a book on the parenting course.
We've done, and it's as the basis of the marriage book is the marriage preparation course and the marriage course. We've done a book on parenting, and we do two courses, one for parents with children aged 0 to 10, another course, the Parenting Teenagers course, parents with children aged 11 to 18. And we run those courses 3 times a year as well.
Okay.
Our next parenting courses, they start on June the 14th.
June the 14th.
I know that's right. They run on 5 Thursday evenings.
May the 21st.
Oh, you were right, yes.
Yeah, May the 21st for the marriage course and June the 14th for the parenting course.
Okay. So you can go to Relationship Central to get that information. And if you wanted to go to the one in HTB, that would be great. Yeah. Just to remind everyone, it is HTB is a Church of England, but the courses are not for only people who are of Christian faith. Exactly. It's for people who are of non-Christian faith or no faith at all. So you're very, very welcome. And I can attest to that because I go to this church, that it is, you will get what you're looking for. It is exactly what it says on the tin. And I hope that we've been able to do the courses justice. With me asking all my personal questions. I always have a personal agenda on my show.
And we also welcome cohabiting couples. So you don't even need to be married. If you've been together for a while, you're living together, then absolutely we welcome you too.
Oh, fantastic. So Nicky and Sila, thank you so much. I can't tell you how thrilled I am that both of you have come on, and I can't wait to go and listen back to this show because lots of juicy nuggets for us. So, there you have.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure.
It's been lovely and a great honour to be the first man.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. And for you, my listeners, thank you for your company. It's been fantastic. Hope you have a great Easter. I'm not on tomorrow. I'm going to put on one of my favourite shows I did 2 weeks ago on domestic violence. So I'm going to have that on. And if you stay tuned between 11 and 1 o'clock tomorrow, that will be on. So take care. Bye.